And you said this does record to YouTube?
It's going to get up. It's going to go on the YouTubes and on Facebook.
So, like, for future reference?
Yep. It'll be there forever. And we should be there live right now, Justin, but let me just verify. I'm checking the feed. Okay. And we should be live, man. So let's go ahead and get going. And I just doing one last thing. All right, so Tyson Mutrux here with Justin Conrad with Nash Vegas. Can't even say it right. And so we're going to do a little chat with Justin today and talk about his businesses, his career, and really how he's dealt with the pandemic. So, Justin, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you, bud?
Good. And I'm not used to calling you Justin. I'm used to calling you Conrad. So I'm going to call you Conrad. That's what you prefer. So let's jump in a little bit. Tell people about who you are and what you do for a living.
Yeah. I own Nash Vegas downtown in Columbia, Missouri. Right now, I did have the Elm Street Ballroom and Bambino's Italian Cafe down on 10th Street before the pandemic. So right now, we're just working with what we have left down at 10th and Broadway at Nash.
Yeah, so it's something that it's funny. You and I have talked quite a bit, and you don't talk about this that much, but you were a musician, and you still are. I heard you singing a little bit when I walked in the other room. So talk about your musical career.
Yeah, I used to play guitar and do some singing for 3 or 4 years full time. Back when my wife was selling real estate for Remax, and I did that on the side and did really well with it. And I learned a lot about the bar business doing that. And at some point in there, I decided that I wanted to go ahead and open a bar one day, and then kind of made things happen to use what I learned playing music and kind of apply that to the business and get something started here in Columbia.
Yeah. And so, did you start with Bambino's or did you start with Nash Vegas? So
my wife worked back in the 90s at Bambino's at the old Hit Street location. And then
that's one that I remembered from like my childhood.
Yeah, that's the one people remember. That one was great. It moved down to Broadway, and then later on, she ended up bartending down on the Broadway location. It was there from 2010 maybe to about 2013, 2009 maybe. I was going to business school, or I was studying business down at Columbia College, and I used to go down there after class and see her and have a beer. And I made a relationship with the manager down there, and ended up purchasing Bambino's in 2000 and late 2012 from Adam Guy Restaurant Group that owned it at the time, and we ended up shutting Bambino's down and opening Nash in that location.
So it's one thing that I learned from you is why that location moved, that Bambino's location. So tell people why that was, because I didn't know. I didn't realize what the reason
from Hit Street down to Broadway. Well, right. The original owner started that with his wife and his buddy, and the kind of the story I heard was there's a couple variables. One was that the owner's wife ended up passing away, and then the other was there was something to do with the university owned the property that Hit Street location was on, and didn't want to renew the lease, or maybe the owner didn't or something. But he decided at that time to get out and just go ahead and pass the business on. And a couple guys from the ad sheet are the ones I think that purchased it and opened it down on 10th and Broadway. And then Adam got involved, and then Adam ended up with it and sold it to me after that.
And then at some point, when was it that you decided to open Nash Vegas?
2013. Yeah, it was the same time. So we purchased Bambino's, and the day after we purchased it, we shut it down and started working to get Nash open, and that was about a three month flip to get Nash up and operating.
So it's crazy. So people are always saying that you should never own a restaurant, right? You decided to open a bar and a restaurant pretty much at the same time. So what's wrong with you mentally? There's something wrong with you.
At the time, I just didn't know what I know now. Really, I didn't know how good we had it before. So so 2013 we opened the bar, and it went really well from day one. I mean, the first weekend was capacity, and I think we hit capacity every week, every Friday, Saturday for the next, until the pandemic hit. Sometime around 2016, we started kicking the idea around of bringing Bambino's back. Nancy had been real good friends with the owners back in the day, and just her past there. And I used to work at an engineering firm here in town. We used to go down on Fridays and do the old, do the lasagna on Fridays and do all that kind of stuff. And so we decided that we wanted to bring Bambino's back, but we wanted to bring it back like the hit street. Because there's a few things changed when they changed locations with the new owners. And we wanted to take it back to the original. We got a hold of the original handwritten recipes from the original owners and all that kind of stuff, and just wanted to bring back that original vibe and that original menu from the place. So.
Yeah, whenever my wife and I moved back to town, we were so excited that there was a Bambino's, again, because we'd always remembered it when we were younger, and so we were so happy to see that you had opened it and everything. So it was really cool, but. And things have changed a lot over the last 9 months or so, and that's the main reason why we wanted to talk today. Was to talk a little bit about how it's affected your businesses, how it's affected other businesses, and so I want to get into a little bit about that. But so the pandemic hits in February, March, and things change. So you want to talk a little bit about how all that sort of snowballed.
Yeah, for sure. When the pandemic came, it came really fast. It went from just kind of hearing kind of rumors about it within a couple of days of that. We got the call that MU was closing down, and Bambino's being right next to campus. We knew that was initially going to be quite a situation to overcome. So with Bambino's, we also operated the Elm Street Ballroom behind Bambino's, and so we kind of used them hand in hand. We did a lot of private events and stuff, a lot of sorority parties, a lot of weddings and corporate stuff like that. And within 4 hours of finding out the news that the university canceled, we lost every single event we had planned. I mean, Mother's Day and graduation weekend and all everything. Within that 4 hours, and including about 95% of our staff who were college students, and their parents were saying, we want you to get home. We don't know what's going on with this thing, and we want you to come back. So yeah, it was pretty abrupt down there. We made the decision pretty quickly which I think most of the businesses in town did, voluntarily just shut down for that weekend. That all that went down just right off the bat. Everybody's like, let's sit a weekend out and find out kind of what the game plan is moving forward. So
how is it different for when it comes to Bambino's versus Nash Vegas? I mean, were you still able to sort of operate when it comes to Nash Vegas as well?
No. So we shut all of them down that first weekend. The issue with Bambino's, the main issue there was a lot of it relied on the events, and with the events being totally washed out, that was a pretty substantial hit to the year. And the original information we were getting was this 15 days to flatten the curve, and we were looking at that 15 days and started setting up a plan to what are we going to do, what are we going to move around, and how are we going to work this. And then a couple days into that 15 days, then we hear it's going to be 6 months of this lockdown. And then we're looking at the calendar going, well, that puts us into June, and June through August is the 3 slowest months of the year, for downtown anyway, especially when you're on campus and you rely on the campus for your business. So the expenses down there outweighed the expenses at Nash, and we couldn't absorb all of them. And so we just looked at what we could afford and this was just the first month. And we weren't going to make it a second month of not being open and just cash flowing all of those overhead expenses. out of our pocket. So we talked to the landlord and came to an agreement, and ended up having to write a check to buy out of that lease just to be able to shut that business down, to try and salvage what, if anything, was going to be left of Nash after this pandemic.
Have you had a chance to talk to employees, former employees, once all this sort of went down, how it's affected them?
Ish. Yeah, I've talked. I mean, it's a lot of our employees down at Bambino's in the ballroom were part-time kind of college MU students, a lot of them. And of course it affected them, but they relied on it a little less than like our kitchen staff really struggled. And one of our guys had been with us down there from the beginning, and we just went ahead and kept him I just kept in touch with him. We went about a month or two where he could float. And then after that, we started figuring out just odds and ends and stuff to try and get him as much money as we could to keep a hold of him. We, the intention was to employ him down at Nash because he was, a full-time guy, and, he's got a family and all his stuff going on too. And so the PPP loan that came out, helped him with that. So we were able to, borrow that, pay him and that kind of thing, and help as many of those employees as we could. So that's kind of how we move forward with them.
So I don't know a whole lot about the restaurant business, but I always hear that it's super freaking expensive. Your margins are really, really thin. And so I just sort of picture in March, you're just bleeding money. I mean, is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the restaurant, the national average is like 8% profit or something at the end of the year, and 8% isn't a big number.
That's tiny. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, that's crazy.
Especially when things like, your labor are 30% and your cost of goods are 30% stuff. Everything else is so much larger than your labor. If there's one little slip up, an entire year it can be just gone. And with us, even 1 month of just being shut completely down and absorbing all of the overhead was a big dent in the year. And then when it turned into 2 or 3 months, it was like, well, how many years do we want to have to operate in the future at a loss to cover what we had to incur over these 2 or 3 months at the time, before we knew it was going to stretch out into, we're going on 10 months now, 9 months. And
you mentioned like the 2 weeks to flatten the curve thing. And I do remember that. It's kind of crazy. It seems like it was like so long ago, but you're talking about March. And then like, you're also like sort of hit with a bunch of other restrictions when it comes to business owners. And we can kind of get into, small businesses versus the Walmarts of the world later on and talk a little bit about that. But you had to like basically reconfigure everything. So like, talk about how you had to reconfigure Nash to even survive.
Right. So at that point, after the 60 days to flatten the curve out, and we decided to just go ahead and just lose Bambino's and everything that went into that. Then when the city allowed people to start reopening, they actually had a ban against bars reopening. Everybody, all of the other businesses in town but bars were deemed essential, and bars were deemed non-essential. And so we, right off the bat, in order to be able to get Nash open, which we had to do, we had to reconfigure it into a restaurant. And so the requirements on that were like putting in a kitchen, putting in equipment to do that, coming up with a menu, trying to market that to get all that stuff going. And then you had to show that over half your sales were to food. So it was a complete reversal of business plan, when it came to doing that. But we did it, and we went in and we set up kind of like a temporary kitchen at the time. At this point, we've put in a full-blown kitchen and really repositioned the kind of the future of Nash into more of a bar grill restaurant. But yeah, at the time we put in like a makeshift kitchen to get open again.
I cannot imagine that was a cheap transition to go through.
No, a lot of money, a lot of time.
Yeah, especially as you're bleeding money and everything too. But something else that you and I have talked about too is how like your clientele has changed, right? Like, so, and for those of you that don't understand like how a college town works when it comes to like locals versus college students, talk a little bit about that, how there is a difference in how things have changed.
For sure. Yeah. One of the biggest things when we opened Nash Vegas up in 2013 that we knew we were going to have to overcome was we wanted to have a bar for adults. We wanted, we were getting to that age where we were running out of places downtown to go. Because a lot of places are geared, penny beers and quarter pitchers and stuff. They're geared towards the kids. And we wanted a place that older people could go. And we did that. We really stuck to our guns. We went 2 or 3 years without ever doing any specials on anything. And that was to let, the older people know that they had a place they could go really party and have a good time. And yeah, since the pandemic, 99% of our regulars we haven't seen any of them. And some of that's attributed to just to the inconsistency of our hours. We're open one weekend and then we get shut down again, or we open and then they change the rules to where we can't open the next weekend and then we get back open. And typically your adults just don't mess with that kind of stuff too much before they just go, we're just going to wait till it's done. But also, kind of what's worked with that hand in hand with that is a lot of the college bars have either permanently went out of business or they're still just indefinitely shut down, waiting for something to have, a plan moving forward or some way to plan their businesses, future off this thing. And so what ends up happening is we get the overflow of the kids that would typically go somewhere else. So now we're getting, and it's a good group of kids. We've had to set up some stuff to deal with that. Door guys and scanning IDs and trying to keep all the underage kids and stuff out and kind of working with that and learning that thing. But yeah, it's definitely a different demographic downtown in general now. I mean, even just watching people walk around, you just don't see the same demographic down there at all. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it's definitely a different world downtown. And so I flashed, actually, Amy posted a comment up here. And so I am curious if there's any other business owners watching this, just hear your stories and your comments about this too, because I'm sure it's affected you as well, because that's it's just something that's affecting everyone right now. But so I want to talk, you mentioned like the, checking the college students and all that kind of stuff. And you've had, there have been some difficulties. Like you've had to basically police people, right? Like, and it's difficult. Talk about that.
For sure. It's crazy. So that was one of the things we got shut down over. Was there was 2 tables of girl friends, and they were talking to each other, and I honestly didn't know about the no co-mingling rule, but in Colombia there's a no co-mingling rule right now where you can't talk to people that don't live with you. Haven't seen it policed anywhere besides Nash Vegas. Never even heard the term before we lost our operating permit over it. But it's kind of been a really tough thing because we can ask people to put a mask on and we do, and put the signage up and stuff, and really hasn't been an issue getting people to wear them. Now people do forget to put them back on if they stand up, and so we're constantly walking around monitoring that kind of thing. But even this past weekend we had a group of 15 girls together, and we had to set 10 at one table, and because that's the maximum. These are 10 girls that live in they're same sorority house. They live together. Put 10 at one table, 5 at the other, and then we have to tell them that they can't talk to each other throughout the night. And if they get caught talking, we get shut down over it. Our business gets shut down over it. It's been a really bizarre position for the city to take, and for the county to put us in that kind of that awkward position of telling people to do things, because we don't, we honestly don't know how far we can take it. We know that there's things you can't ask them if they say they have a condition. I'm under the impression that you can't ask them what it is, and so we're just on our heels all the time with the policing down there of it.
Something I found interesting is that you get like people like will come by and they'll like take pictures of outside on the sidewalk, and and then like they criticize you for not enforcing it. So I think it's very clear that you set the record straight on what you can and can't do on the sidewalk. Like, talk about that.
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are at this point. Inside, I'm still uncertain of what all the rules are because they change weekly. We've bounced back and forth through all 3 or 4 categories that they have, depending on what they wanted to consider us that week. So we went from a bar to a restaurant, and at the time it was restaurant. No, and then they opened restaurant bar category up. So then we went to restaurant bar. Then we went to restaurant category. Then because we wanted to do music, we had to switch to the entertainment venue category. Each category has its own set of rules. And when we got shut down, we were at the time in the entertainment category, but we were shut down because we were breaking rules in the bar category. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm trying to do what they're asking us to do, but we just don't know. As far as outside, the last 2 weekends we've been open, there's been people driving by and complaining that people were the first complaint that we got was people sitting at a table didn't have masks on. Well, the health department showed up to reprimand us and check that out. And when I asked her, I said I thought that wasn't against the rules, and it wasn't against the rules, but we have to follow up with every complaint. So at that point, I'm just like, okay. And then this past weekend, they showed the police department showed up 2 different times. Once, I don't know what for. The other time was for there had been a complaint, somebody driving by, and there were people standing too close together in line.
And just to be clear, so people that don't know, like, you can't control that. Like, that's not like the city doesn't say you have to control that. Like, that on the sidewalk is completely out of your control. Like, that's owned by the city. So like it's outside of your control. So
right.
Don't realize that, like that. And it's interesting because I know you do get criticized for that, but you have no control over it. You can't control what people do out on the sidewalk. You don't own the sidewalk. You can't tell people where to stand. It's just out of your control.
For sure. And really the officers that come down there, I mean, they're everything short of just eye rolling every time they have to show up. I mean, they're not unreasonable people by any stretch. So they just come and they let me know, like, hey, here's what was said, and we got to go ask people not to stand together, and whatever. So they've been really good about it. They've been the voice of reason through the whole thing, because they're actually out in society and actually paying attention to what is going on, and they know a little better how things work than the people actually making the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out to Nash with you, and I've kind of walked around, and we've looked at, you've reconfigured the bar where people can't stand in certain spots. You've moved the tables around. You've put X's on the ground to make sure people are social distancing, and so you've really bent over backwards to try to make sure that you're in compliance.
And so on that point, just I'd like to mention, it was crazy. I went out to dinner last night with my wife, and a buddy of mine's restaurant just got back open finally after all this stuff. He was teeter-tottering on maybe throwing the towel in over 30 years of being open. And we sat right at his bar, 2 feet away from a bartender. It was all approved. It's a great place, like little more upscale spot or whatever, but it's crazy how the city's decided that isn't as dangerous as at Nash. You literally can't walk up to the middle of the bar and even order a drink and walk off, let alone sit there. You got to go down to one end of the room to order, or down to the other end. The inconsistency in the rules has been a real challenge to try and figure out. I gave up on trying to figure out what they're thinking, because I don't know if there's much thought process behind some of it. But yeah, it's been a wild thing to overcome with all the tape and it's to the point there's so many rules that you can't enforce them. People aren't taking the rules serious, because when there's rules that say you got to stand here, you can't stand here because your safety. It's people start giving up and not paying attention to stuff.
So, I know we've talked a lot about you, but I mean, you and I have had a lot of these conversations about how you're not the only one in town. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are in general that are just struggling. So like, talk a little bit about that. I mean, because like businesses are struggling, and we listen, like the pandemic's been hard on everybody, but a lot of these small businesses have just been hammered. I mean, really have been hammered by this.
Just donezo, permanently gone too. There's a lot of them. I used to be more up and up on the list. I know Fuzzy's is gone. That was downtown. It's been taken over by a local place. so hopefully that goes well if we can get things opened up so they can start operating. I know we lost Caldy's Coffee. We lost on just on Broadway Street alone, the bars up and down the road. Everybody's just Jesse Garcia lost the Penguin Piano Bar, and that had been around for 16 or 17 years, as well as upstairs Roxy's. He bought, I don't remember when he bought that. He bought that. That one was going before us too. That was Club Generic, and he turned it into Roxy's. But it's just sad to see it. I've seen him do several remodels up and down, and just really pour a ton of time, money, and effort into those. And he's one of the guys that kind of stands out to me because he was always downtown. I talked to him in passing and stuff, and just really cared about the places. And I saw him kind of evolve into really good businesses, and they're just gone. I mean, it's just happening, and I just think some of it's unnecessary.
You told me about the Caldy's today. I had no idea that Caldy's had shut down. I mean, that's crazy.
There's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch. I haven't heard any updated lists of businesses. I know they're dropping like flies, but you don't really hear about most of it in the news around here anymore. The whole sediment. So I mean, a week after this thing happened, it was crazy because the community was real. We got to save our town. We got to save our small businesses, and now we're 9 months later where people been kind of told what to think, and now it's like all the businesses are turning on people. I saw one of the other businesses the other day complaining that one of the other businesses had a line out the door. It's like it's really kind of sad to see what's happening downtown, because it used to be tight down there, and everybody's in this. I mean, everybody's not in the same boat, but everybody's in the same boat of this isn't good, and it's varying levels of not good. And I think it's getting long enough now that they're forgetting that everybody's in a bad position right now, and we need to figure out a plan for moving forward. We're still not given any sort of a plan on any of it. So.
Yeah, it really is interesting because it's not. I mean, it's the business owners, and then what we're not talking about a lot is like the staff and the employees that are just not able to work. I mean, you're talking about you're on a skeleton crew versus like compared to normal, right? It's
stripped down, and we're giving the least amount of hours out we possibly can because it doesn't make sense. We're already losing money so we're still. And what's crazy is the media, in the local, the city and the county, they'll come out and tell the public all day long that, well, there's no more capacity restrictions. Look what we're letting them do. But in reality, we're at about 40% capacity right now because the tables have to be 6 feet apart, and we only have so much room. And at 40% capacity, we lose money. It's not sustainable, and we're on month 9. And it's for bars and restaurants, it's gotten worse and worse. For Walmart and Lowe's, it's gotten better and better. And so now all we hear is talks about the stimulus package coming out, but it's like, well, the government's offering money to people, and then they're making it illegal for them to spend it locally at the local restaurants and bars. They're wanting, they're handing out people more money than maybe some of them typically make, and then they're telling them jump on Abercrombie or jump on Amazon and order stuff, but you can't go spend it at your local pub. It's been really frustrating to try and adapt to a situation that there's no way to beat what's going on. It's just everybody's just in limbo. Everyone's just waiting. What's the plan? Has it worked? Doesn't seem to me that it's worked. Is it going to work if we do the exact same thing over? I don't think it would. If we do it the same thing we did last time, I think there's a lot of articles out now that show the contrary to shutting things down and pushing people inside their homes is going to change any of this. So if they don't figure out what to do and do something different than they've been doing, then we're going to continue doing this for a long time.
Sure. And I like the message about supporting local. And I mean, I'm just hoping that the government will step in and be able to protect all these small businesses. I mean, I think the restaurant industry, the bar industry has been hit the hardest. And
for sure.
That's what sucks about this is hopefully they'll be able to come through and support you all and kind of help you through this. Cause realistically, how much longer do you think you can make it through this? I mean, you've somehow made it 9 months. One of your businesses is gone. I mean, how how much longer you think you could go?
We're going to need, I mean, right now it's month to month, and they're talking about a stimulus package, but the last package, what people don't understand is businesses aren't permanently closing because they couldn't afford employees while they're shut down. Businesses are permanently closing because they can't afford the bills that they're on the hook for, rent, utilities, insurance, all that stuff that we have to pay regardless if we're open or not, 9 months of it, and we're just our rent, utilities, and all that fixed cost down at BAM. We're up over $100,000 now in just fixed expenses since this thing started. That's just at BAM, or just at Nash, and so it's month to month. And when the PPP came out, the vast majority of that money that the government offered was meant to go to employees, which is good, but the employees also they're getting unemployment, and they're getting the extra $600, and they're getting all this stuff when they're not incurring these extra expenses. And so without some help, it's month to month right now. We can't take another shutdown. When they shut us down completely for that additional month, we can't do that moving forward. So we're getting to a position where now we're on to going to have to start doing things that we have to do versus trying to work with them and doing things we want to do. Now it's survival mode, and at some point you have to go to survival mode. It just is what it is. But
yeah. All right, man. Well, I promised you only 30 minutes, but we went long. So let's actually just barely. We actually just 31 minutes, so we're not too bad. So, well, I guess I'll let you have the last word, man. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I appreciate the advice you've given me so far. I really think people, coming up on the holiday season, shop local if you can make it downtown. There are still some places still open. These I know we're surrounded by the retail shops down at Nash. They're taking a hit really bad too right now, just because there's no traffic. I know a lot of people are kind of dodging Columbia in general because of what's going on and going. I hear it every day from a lot of people that, Fulton, Boonville, everywhere. Jeff City, I know, has been killing it. But there's a lot of stuff still open downtown. If you're not going to the bars, that's fine. Just try and spend your money locally, because people are getting killed. If you see anybody throwing stuff up, we're going to have a GoFundMe up. Keep an eye out for the link. If you can help, cool. If you can't, share it. That does just about as much, but I don't know. Heads up.
Thanks, man. See you, buddy.
See you.